Welcome to B2B Sales Trends, the podcast dedicated to sales leaders in the B2B space, where we share conversations about innovative and successful sales transformations to keep you up to date on the latest trends. This podcast is brought to you by Global Performance Group.
Welcome you to another fabulous episode of the B2B Sales Trends podcast, my lovely B2B sellers. The show that brings you hacks, tips, thought leadership to the topic of, guess what? B2B selling. Absolutely correct. My name is Harry Kendelbacher, and today I have somebody super special with me. Today I have with me Samantha Snetselaar. I hope I pronounced that right. And Samantha is the VP of Strategic Sales for Qualtrics. Welcome to the B2B Sales Trends podcast, Samantha.
Thank you, Harry. Very happy to be here. Appreciate it.
Fabulous. Tell me, Samantha, a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been at Qualtrics for a little over 8 years now. I started out as an enterprise account executive. I did that for about 5 years. Constant President's Club Award winner, and we call it Q Club. And then I moved into a AVP role. So that's for us, it's a frontline manager role. And from there, I was our enterprise AVP of the year. So did that for about 2 years. And then I moved into a new team at Qualtrics. We're fairly unique. It's called Global Strategic Engagements.
Yep.
And essentially, it's part of our Office of the CEO. So we are there to help the organization through a number of different ways. One is with our strategic engagements and our strategic accounts that we have across the organization, whether it be our current clients, and really helping them make sure they have the best resources, whether that be internally with the different teams at Qualtrics. So think like customer success or product or engineering, as well as making sure that they have relationships with other clients to share best practices.
Right.
And then working with our sales team as we're looking at prospective clients and really ensuring we're thinking about the sales process in the right way. They have all the resources they need to really show what a potential partnership would look like with accounts. And then a big part of my day-to-day job is also working with our executive team and how can we engage them in the right ways and the right prospective accounts, as well as our strategic clients, to really make sure that it's a great partnership and a long-term partnership, with all of our clients. So that's a little bit about my role.
Interesting. You have a lot on your plate and you're very well decorated in terms of what you've achieved. So fantastic. Congratulations. You talked a little bit about the executive sort of engagement in this from both sides, right? You have your own executives within your organization and you're going to bring them into these strategic opportunities. Now, getting time with an executive is difficult. We know that. And the window to earn that trust is really short, right? It's really quick. How can account teams, in your opinion, come to the table with the right point of view to share with their own executive first, so when they're ready to engage the client's executive team, you have the right message that will resonate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's important to note, right, that executives can be a fantastic partner, right? There's so much that they can unlock when you're looking at, either your prospects or your clients, and how can I, continue to position the right solutions for them. But I also think it's very critical to know that you as a seller are responsible for the ground game, right? And so you need to come to the table with a point of view and account strategy of, hey, here are the key points to know, executive, and here's how I want you to help. Right. And you need to make sure that you keep it concise, right? Executives are extremely busy, right? They've got so much on their plate that this is something that's important to them, but you need to make sure that, you've got that right message to deliver to them. And so from that standpoint, thinking about that point of view that you're bringing to them, one, you need to know your client's business, right? So reading their 10K, looking at quarterly reports, and I think especially in this new world, leveraging the AI tools to really go just like below surface level of what their initiatives are, but truly understand them, right? And so I think, especially if you've got a public company that's a prospect of yours, there's a wealth of knowledge that executives are giving you. So if you go look at the articles that were released and interviews that they've given, right, they're sharing what's important to them And so being able to take all that information and build out a point of view of, okay, now I know what's important to these executives, build out a vision of how my solution really helps solve their problems and their pain points, and really tie it back, right? So what I mean for that by example is, are you looking at fixing top line revenue growth, right? Are you helping them with increase in sales and increase in revenue, or is it more bottom line growth? Are you really looking at the operational efficiencies that your solution allows them to accomplish? And so having that clear point of view is so important when you're first going to your executives.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then what else do they need to consider then in the obviously we talked about the preparation, all the information they gather. Do you think that a combined, obviously, preparation meeting is key? And how should they be letting the executive lead the conversation then during the meeting? They tend to have take over the conversation when they're in there. How involved do salespeople then need to be with those executives?
Yeah. So I think that it's absolutely something where it's not just, hey, executives made a connection. That's great. Okay. Like now, they're going to run the process for us, right? That's not how it works per se. So I think it's really important as the account team to do your homework, right? And really have a clear point of view and next steps of what you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And I think the first part of that process is understanding, okay, what's my account footprint, right? What's my current state? What are the contracts that are currently in place? What's my ARR? Understanding, relationship mapping, who we've met in the organization and who we want to meet, right? Who in our executive team should we align to each of those different individuals of who we want to meet? And I can dive into this a little bit further, but it's really thinking about what are the personalities like? What's their background on LinkedIn? What roles did they have? What companies were they at, right? Are there some synergies that we can look to apply? And then I think from that perspective, it's understanding what are the key opportunities in my account, right? So making sure you put those into really key buckets. Like what's the potential ARR that we have? Who are the stakeholders involved? And then what's a brief summary of what are the use cases? And then from there, what are even the value adds of those specific use cases? And so if you can really do your homework of putting together that really clear account plan and being able to speak to that when you're talking with your executives, it helps them really put into their head, okay, here's what we're looking to accomplish. Here's how I can help. Here's where I fit in, right?
Now, that's a great theory, right? And I love that. And I think you're spot on with what people have to do. How difficult is it to get salespeople to do it, in your opinion?
I don't think it's not very difficult, right? I mean, I think the top salespeople, they should already have this built. I mean, if you're thinking about every year you're getting a new book and you're going into your account and you're saying, okay, where are my big whales? Where do I want to focus? And you shouldn't bring your executives into every deal, right? It should be, hey, what are the top strategic deals and top strategic accounts I'm going after? Yeah. And from there, you should have an account strategy already mapped out of this is what I want to accomplish this year. Yeah. This is the targeted ARR I'm going after. And here are the steps quarter by quarter that I'm taking to accomplish that, right?
We find with a lot of our clients that, the great processes such as you've described in place, the people just not very compliant a lot of the times to it. The top people do it, I completely agree, but how do you really make sure this activity, this process is scaled? I just hear this a lot from other clients that's a challenge.
So I think having built out templates is absolutely key, right? So it doesn't need to be, hey, it lives all in your head, now put it on a piece of paper, but hey, here's a template to go after. And there's many ways to do this. It can be in Salesforce, it can be in Coda, it can be in a Google Doc, right? It doesn't really matter. And I think, and then giving your sales teams the tools to enter, for the content, right? So it's, hey, here's the content that we're looking for, and here's the tool to leverage to get that content.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really important.
It's interesting you mentioned multi-stakeholders, especially when you're selling into complex organizations, them many more than just one stakeholder. I think the recent stat says there's up to 12 stakeholders in any one sales process. I know that's across industry, but anyway, the sort of the amount of stakeholders has increased. How do you start thinking about who matters in your preparation there, and how do you sort of line up people in your organization to approach them strategically, because they have to match each other. Salespeople tend to sort of gravitate to the conversation that they like to have versus the ones they have. So how do you deal with those complex sort of web of stakeholders?
Yeah, great question. So, it's funny. I was actually talking with our SVP about this yesterday for our enterprise team about, we can guess as much as we can guess, but we think we know, but there's a very good chance that who we probably think is a decision maker is not, and who is probably the influencer is not, right? And so, I think from that perspective, and kind of going back to my point about the ground game, as a seller, you really need to do the work, and you need to show up, and you need to prove value to, who might end up just being a power user, right? But build a champion in the organization and get them to help you understand their organization, right? Don't guess. It's not gonna bode well for anyone. It's gonna waste everyone's time, right? So making sure that you build champions who can help you with that org structure. And then a lot of times what you need to do is you build that champion, great. They're going to introduce you to their manager. So then you bring your manager in, right? Then and make sure that they form that relationship so it can kind of start to build from the ground up, right? And then from there, once you validated, okay, here's all the decision makers and here's all the steps in the process, and here's where we could get blocked, or here's where we need help. That's when you think about that relationship mapping. And I think one thing that's been eye-opening that I've seen over the last 2 years in my role of just really working across that executive level is the world's a lot smaller than we think, right? And so there's going to be a lot of connections. You think about like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever that terminology is, right? Someone's always going to know something or know someone or have come across them in some way to where it could be as easy as one person putting a text to someone to get introductions to a board member, right? And so I think that you need to understand the levers that you can pull internally versus externally, and start from the top down, and not just at C-level, start at the board. Who's on their board? Then go to C-levels. Then it's SVPs and budget owners, then it's directors and managers. And then pick the people in your org that you want to line up. So know your own internal organization, right? Where did they go to school? What were their past companies that they worked at? Is your C-suite on other boards? Who are your board members? Where else are they engaged in on other boards, right? There's a lot of connections that we can make that we don't even realize.
It's interesting. Sometimes it comes down to just reaching out and asking for, hey, can you help me out with this? I need an introduction to this or that, just as you've described. In my experience, people are really reluctant to do that. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day is that you need to present not just what you want, but why, right? And that kind of ties back into everything else. And so I think it's really important that you need to give the executives key messages to land with their senior stakeholders. And I think the first component of that is understanding what you're looking for them to do, right? Do you need an advocate, and do you need someone to help open the account and the opportunity? Or are you looking for a champion? Do you want someone to help with like blockers in the competition? Or it could just be, hey, like we need an ally. We're trying to get this deal across the line with procurement. We know we're going to run into a lot of roadblocks and red tape. And so like executive, we need you to form a relationship and make an ally. So it's a fruitful long-term partnership, and it's a win-win for both parties. And so when you can come in with that prescriptive approach of this is why, and this is the role I want you to play, your executives are going to be much more receptive to helping you.
Yeah. Interesting. Let's fast forward a little bit. So you've done your prep, you've connected the exec, you've given him or her, the message, the preparation. You go into the meeting. What does success look like when you come out of that meeting with your exec, with the client, from the client's office, should I say? What does success look like in your opinion with such a high stake sort of high level meeting?
Yeah. So I think that's something that you need to ensure that you've defined before you even go to your executive too,
Yeah.
right? So it's really understanding, okay, in a perfect world, I get
Mm.
these two executives to connect.
Yep.
What does success look like? What is the ask that we're going to have our executive make of theirs, right? Is it, hey, we want you to sponsor this specific workshop so that we can get the right resources to come in, have a full day, paint our art of the possible, outline what the phased approach would look like to kick this off and really get down to, okay, now how are we going to bring this to life?
Yeah.
Or is it, hey, we're going to have a QBR and we want, four other leaders to come to the table to see what we've done in the account and what the future could look like, right? So it's understanding what good looks like and what success looks like ahead of the call or ahead of that touch point. And then from there too, it's laying out what are the actions that me as the seller is going to take over the next week, month, 3 months to really push towards that larger opportunity that I'm looking to close. So if you can come to the table with that point of view and just mentally as a seller, it really helps you keep the momentum from that touch point. That's so critical.
Yeah. How can you leverage the executives' time or the whole executive team, should I say, to stay engaged throughout your entire sales process? We've just had the meeting. It's not just about that one meeting, but as a true partner in the sales journey, when deals take, I don't know, months and months, 6 to 18 or whatever months,
Yeah.
and the executives have a lot on your plate, on their plate, as you mentioned. How do you get them to stay engaged through the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's a great question. I feel like it's a fairly simple answer, right? It's updating them, right? So, and it's updating them and thanking them. It's to the point of, hey, thank you so much for having that connection months ago. I want to let you know you unlocked this. We just had this great on site and we've got these 3 next steps. Because we just had these 3 next steps, here's a draft email or here's a draft text for you to send to that executive thanking them for their sponsorship and letting them know what we're doing next and keeping them engaged. And so if you can do that at every critical point of the sales process, or this also could just be relationship building while you're building the relationship in an account that you already sold, it's great because it's very easy for the executive to continue to stay involved. And then they get, then they're invested, right? So then when you need help or you need additional resources within your company, that executive is like, absolutely, we're going to give, Samantha those resources because I'm so engaged and I'm involved and we're having all this success, right? So it's pretty simple from that perspective.
I really like that because, in the world of B2B selling, there's so much is over-engineered. People make it too complicated, so many different processes and this and that. It comes down to a few really simple things. And what you've shared, asking for help, sharing why that is important, thanking them, keeping them updated and so forth. That's all not rocket science, right? People just have to do it. Right?
Yeah.
They have to do it well, and they have to have the courage to do it. I think that's really one of the key principles. And how do you do them really, really well? I think that's a really cool message.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, like, don't be afraid to ask, right? The worst that they could say is no, because you haven't done XYZ, right? So then at that point, okay, here's my homework. It's only going to make everyone better. It's only going to help the organization. So sellers should not be afraid to engage the executive team.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're almost at the end, Samantha. I mean, you've been a fabulous guest. Tell me the 3 top qualities in your opinion. And you've seen a lot of salespeople, a lot of good salespeople, probably a lot of not so good salespeople. What, in your opinion, are the top 3 qualities that elite salespeople need to possess these days?
Yeah, that's a great question. 3 top qualities. Okay, so first, I would say, and I think this, again, it's not rocket science, but especially in my purview, it is crazy to see how many sellers do not do this as well as they should. Be the biggest champion of your ecosystem. Leverage all of them. And I know this sounds a little weird, but like at the end of the day, when you are closing an account and closing an opportunity, you want as many handprints on the gun as possible. I had a really good leader say that to me once that just stuck with me, but it's absolutely true, right? So leverage all the resources that you need from a pre-sales perspective to help you close a deal. But at the same time, treat them, and I know this sounds weird, but like treat them as humans, right? Say thank you. Know their story, right? Celebrate their birthdays, so like learn about their families. Like the more that you can build relationships with your own internal ecosystem, the more successful you will be, because that helps your own internal reputation, which then just can unlock amazing opportunities within your organization, right? So I think that's so critical, and it's not as widely used as you would think. Um, Two, I would say, is you need to have that learner mindset, right? You need to know your product. You need to have used your product, right? Drink your own champagne or however you want to phrase it, right? Eat your own dog food, but make sure that you are always learning and always keeping up to date on the latest trends and things going on in your industry, and really know your product as, almost, and you don't need to go as deep as your sales engineer, but you should be able to demo it yourself, right? So
Right.
that's another one I would say, because at the end of the day, when you think about it, expertise and intent is everything in sales.
Yeah.
Right. If you can know your product, and if your buyer can understand that your intent is good and you're just trying to help, that's the formula. So I would say that's number two. And then the third one is, and this is something that I feel like I've really had to learn over the last couple of years, but what I see something of, especially like learning from our executive team and from our senior management, is strive for performance excellence. And what I mean by that is, in today's world, like we're all anxious all the time. We're all overly stressed, and our phones are always on us, whether it be Slack or whatever type of channel is always on. You're always checking your email, right? So how can we prioritize our own health, and how can we find time for ourselves, right? I'm a working mom. I've got 2 little boys. And so for me, I have to get up super early before everyone in the house, and I have to have time to drink my cup of coffee and like read a book so I can just get centered for myself and find time to take walks and find time to do hobbies, right? So it's because if you can come into the day with a clear mind, it's incredible what you can accomplish, versus days when I don't do that and I'm overly stressed and overly worked, like your performance can just tank. So I think that's something that I've seen as really critical for success too.
Well, you're amazing, not just professionally, but also as an individual. So thank you. Thank you so much for all your insights. My lovely people, you've heard it here first. Be the biggest champion, leverage all the resources, and you have a learner mindset and strive for excellence. Those are really the key things that Samantha recommends to you to be at an elite top level. Thank you, Samantha. I know our listeners very much appreciate your insights and your input. So thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you, Harry, for having me. This was really fun. So yeah, I appreciate the time too.
My lovely people, 2 calls to action for you. Go to the b2bsalestrends.com site. Recommend this podcast or others to your colleagues, your friends, your loved ones. Subscribe to the YouTube channel B2B Sales Trends podcast. And I wish you all the very best. Look after yourself and your loved ones, and of course, your B2B sellers. Until the next episode, all the best. Bye-bye.